So we've talked about getting on and being more vulnerable and more, this is how we use it and integrate it into our everyday life. So today was a long day. I did a lot, lots of change, lots of new stuff coming. And when Lou got home and we started making dinner, of course, the whole house gets excited because he comes home. And so it was loud and it's been a long day and I'm tired. And I was like, I could feel the urge of me to be like, oh my God, be quiet, coming
Oh,
up. And so instead of doing that, I went into a forward fold. I adjusted my feet and I hung over my legs, not for long, just for like, I'm going to say probably like 8, maybe 10 breaths, and just stay there and just focused on feeling my feet, the four corners of my feet, making that downward, that gentle downward connection, letting my whole body kind of soften into the fold and let my head completely hang and just was breathing. And not that the chaos stopped, but when I came back up slowly, I felt like you can just feel everything kind of in just that simple bit, right? Like a couple
yep.
minutes, maybe if it was that long. But
If it
it
right.
really, it helped shift it enough that I was not overwhelmed anymore and I could just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not much of a hiccup in the day. So just little things. And so
That's
we
how
talk
I.
about,
That's how
go
I've been
ahead.
doing it too. Yeah, that's. I do try to do some stretching and things when I first wake up, but I tend to be sluggish, and so I do child's pose a lot in the morning because um, I have a habit from when I had tonsils that obstructed my breathing of sleeping in a back bend shape. So
Okay.
right across where my kidneys are, where my low ribs are is always tense after I wake up. I have to really
Okay.
concentrate on falling asleep, like puffing that part of my back out. So child's pose in the morning, not only is it comforting for my mind, but it also really physically, it gets right to where I need to stretch in the morning. But I did a little bit of a sequence this afternoon after I talked with you, and then after I met with Linda. I did up onto the ball of my foot, and then like the way Lauren teaches, going all the way down with fingers extended out to the floor, and then coming up into chair, and then Uttanasana with my palms on the floor. So you talking about your forward fold, it was the being able to put my palms flat on the floor in a forward fold felt very grounding, very
See,
calming
and for
after all of
me,
that.
I did my palms up because I needed
Ah, you were relaxing in the shoulder, right?
relaxing, yeah, relaxing the shoulders because I carry my tension here, the
Mm-hmm.
weight of the world on my shoulders, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's figuratively
Typical.
speaking.
Right, of
Yeah.
course.
And the
Yeah.
palms up is kind of like, for me, it signifies surrender, kind of like, okay,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
I'm just going to surrender and take
Mm-hmm.
in whatever the universe or right has to offer.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Absolutely.
surrender and be there. Yeah. That is very grounding though. I oftentimes practice that too. The, the hands and the feet, making that good grounding downward connection. It was a little different for me. I was kind of like releasing and being like, okay,
Yep. This is what's happening. Yep. We can handle
yeah,
it. It's a good example of um it's a shift in perspective, right? It's a good example of how largely what we're experiencing is a result from our reactivity as opposed to a true sense of what's happening, because
yeah.
that's how it works. We're very attached to our senses, and we want to believe that our senses are accurate, and more often
Well,
than not it's just we're overwhelmed and we have an emotional content regarding whatever it is that's happening.
absolutely. And being able to come into that and just be like, oh, that's what's happening. What can I do? Oh, I can just kind of, it's almost like, it's funny because we know energetically forward folds are soothing to the nervous system, but
Mm-hmm.
in some ways it occurred to me tonight specifically that it's kind of like, okay, we talked, so we came here to talk about tapas, ishvara, pranidhana, and svadyaya, right? So
Mm-hmm.
discipline, staying power, faith, surrender, devotion, and self-study. So
Mm-hmm.
tonight I could feel that happening, and that piece is from the practice of self-study, right? Being able to recognize what's happening within yourself in any given moment is the result of having svadyaya in your practice.
Well, I kind of
So
like just you being in a forward fold in that situation, starting to creep up into potentially being aggravated because you're being overwhelmed by sensation, particularly by sensation from people who you care about very deeply. So there's all of the mental conditioning and emotional conditioning around even that idea, right? But you actually encompassed in one action all of those concepts.
yes.
You knew how you were aware enough, and you've been practicing for long enough, and you've been paying close enough attention to know this is what's happening. You've tapas, you have enough of physical practice and enough of a discipline to be able to say, I'm going to do something that's going to change the curvature of my inner space. And you had faith. You knew that that practice was going to help you. You had that
Right. And
trust in.
and just in the physical shape of the form, you're kind of bowing down.
Right.
It's
It's a
not,
surrender shape. Yes.
it is a
Yes.
surrender shape, right? It's a,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I release right now. I give up control, and I'm going to fold into this position, and I'm going to breathe into my body, and I'm just
Yep.
going to feel that it's a steadiness that comes when
Yes.
you are able to do that.
Yep. And a
And it
little bit of,
works.
yeah, a little bit of a relief too. There's something very, yeah, it's a relief of whatever that was building. It was like, okay, I'm just going to let that go. Whatever that potentially could have been, whatever the peak of that could have been,
Right.
good. I'm going to let
Well,
that go.
and another thing that I've been considering as I do my practice lately, right? Because sometimes I feel like, and this is something we talk about fairly regularly, there's so many shoulds. I
Mm,
should practice today.
yep.
And yes, I should, right?
Right.
So there's tapas, right? But
Yes.
at the same time, the I should practice sometimes comes with a weight to it that's unnecessary. And so, um, oh damn it, this is gonna have to be edited out because I just lost my stream of thought.
Can I share you mine? You actually you
Yes.
reminded me of something.
Yes.
Because just I looked up those three concepts quick, and I found an article by Pandit Rajmahani Tiganayat. I think I said that
Mhm.
correctly. And about that sutra 2.1. And one of the things that caught my attention, and I was just scrolling through, like, we know these concepts and we've been learning about them for years and years. So I don't want to parrot his words necessarily, but one of the things he said was tapas becomes torture when you don't understand how to apply the techniques,
Yes.
right? So that's not the point of tapas. Discipline and willpower is not to torture yourself into something that you think you should be.
That's so
That's not
important to say.
right. It's not
Yes.
about that. And it might feel a little bit like that when you first start. He actually also acknowledges that in this article that he wrote. It's okay, sometimes it's going to feel really hard, and you're not going to want to, and it's going to feel like torture maybe, and sometimes when you're first starting out. But once you understand how the techniques are applied and what the result is, what you're actually going for, then it becomes, all right, it's going to be hard, but I want to do this because I know what the benefits of this are.
Right. Well,
So
and then
yeah.
also comes some of that faith, right? So how do
Yes.
we know if something works unless we try?
Yes.
And what motivates us to try is faith. We have to have faith in something and have a little bit of excitement about something. And that leads me to where I was going. Ha, we came full circle. Okay. I love when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing when we're doing these practices, and it ties so beautifully into this of tapas not being torture, because sometimes our practice can be just something we do to check it off the list. And that's not what it's about, right?
Right.
Because a lot of what comes from the practice is about the bhavana behind it, right? That word of the intention, the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
How are we doing this thing? Are we doing this
Mm-hmm.
with, I just need to get this done because it's something I should do? Or are we doing this because we know that it fills us up? We know that it's nourishing. We know that it's good for us on so many levels. So that mindset, when you come to the practice, like, has a big effect on the result of any practice, even if it's just 5 minutes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when I did that tonight, I thought to myself, what can I do right now to give myself the capacity to continue with this, right? Because overall means I've exceeded my capacity for that sensory input. That's
Yep,
why we
right.
feel
That's
overwhelmed,
right.
right? Let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about what is overwhelmed for a second. And that is when the capacity to take in information and sensory input has been, you're
You've
over your
reached the
nose
limit.
deep
Yeah.
in capacity, right?
Yep.
And so, no, we shouldn't always count on our practice as a band-aid. I want to say that as a caveat, because we have
Mm-hmm.
teachers and they have teachers who know that it's not meant to be a band-aid. But in times like this where I have been in the house now with my kids for 7 whole weeks, and it's been
Mm-hmm.
beautiful and it's been hard.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be realistic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my capacity, I'm getting here quite often. And so what can I
Yeah.
do right now? What tools do I have? How can I be skillful right now, instead of just releasing into my habits, or releasing into a reaction that is not skillful, that is not thought about, that is not useful? What can I do? Oh, and I'll go back to what I said a couple weeks ago. I went to the simple thing.
Mm.
I'm going to fold over and I'm going to breathe. That's it. So, like you said, all of those things came together. My ability to recognize, because I've done my self study, a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
faith to say, I know that these practices work and I'm going to trust that it's going to serve me now. And then the
Mm-hmm.
discipline to actually be like, yeah, shit's crazy in my house right now. Excuse my language, anybody who might hear that. But I have the ability, I have the capacity, I have the tools to do this, and to do it without moving in ways I don't want to. I don't want to scream at my kids. I don't want to explode at my family.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have a nice evening and dinner, and you know, just to have it without the
Yes,
screaming or
absolutely.
the overwhelm. So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
it was interesting how that all just kind of came together.
Very nice. Perfect example.